Welcome to Whispers in the Dark, where every story is a secret waiting to be told, and every secret changes everything. Before we move on, please click the subscribe button. They said Alex D'Angelo was carved from ice and steel. Every deal he touched turned into gold, or ruin. He didn't blink. He didn't break. And he definitely didn't believe in love. Andre was never supposed to be his weakness. When she walked into the towering penthouse that day, she wasn't dressed in luxury. No designer heels, no diamond necklace. Just a simple silk dress that hung too gently on her frame. Her eyes held stories, quiet ones, trembling ones. But her back? Straight. Taken. He hated that. She was Zenda's stepdaughter. Nothing more. She was part of a bargain, a contract. 3 years, no strings, no emotions. Just appearances. Just convenience. And Alex made sure she knew it. But something about her unnerved him. She didn't flinch when he barked orders. She didn't try to impress him, didn't ask for anything, didn't even look at him long enough to show fear. That infuriated him, and fascinated him. At dinner, she sat across from him like a stranger. Her fork moved methodically. Her eyes never rose. But her silence spoke. Loudly. She wasn't like Beverly. Beverly knew how to play the game. She was sugar-laced venom. Flashy smiles and whispered lies. The kind of woman who kissed you in public and stabbed you in private. And God help him, he had almost married her. Andre. He was different. Honest to a fault. Stronger than she looked. The first time he saw her cry, she was in the garden behind the mansion. Alone. Silent tears. She wiped them quickly as if ashamed. He didn't speak. He didn't comfort her. But something shifted inside him that night. Subtle, sharp. He started noticing the way her hands shook when she poured his tea. How she hummed under her breath while watering the roses. How she flinched every time he slammed a door. He told himself it didn't matter. But it did. One night she stood by the glass wall of their room watching the rain. Her reflection blurred by droplets. He walked in, angry, at her, at himself, at everything. She turned around, eyes glassy but defiant. I didn't ask for this marriage either, she said softly. But I won't break just because you want me to. That was the moment he knew. She wasn't porcelain. She was marble, quiet, cold to the touch but carved with strength. He wasn't falling for her. No, he was already there. Drowning in it. But Alex D'Angelo didn't do love. So he punished her for making him feel it. The morning after their confrontation, Alex pretended nothing had changed. He still read the paper at the breakfast table like she didn't exist. Still ignored the way her fingers lingered on the edge of her cup. Still kept his eyes on his phone when she entered the room, never on her. But inside he was restless. Andre had slipped into his mind like smoke. He couldn't hold it, couldn't stop it, and definitely couldn't control it. That infuriated him more than anything. He tried to push her away the only way he knew how, with coldness. You're not allowed in my study, he snapped one evening after she'd mistakenly walked in looking for a book. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Andre just nodded. Not a single word. No apology. No begging. And somehow that silence screamed louder than anything Beverly had ever thrown at him during their screaming matches. Days passed. Then came the night of the gala. Andre was to accompany him. It was in the contract. She didn't argue, didn't ask what to wear. But when she descended the stairs in a backless navy gown, every breath in Alex's chest faltered. He'd seen models, actresses, heiresses. But Andre? She looked like elegance stitched into defiance. And he hated that he couldn't stop staring. Remember your place, he said sharply, his voice lower than usual. I always do, she replied, her chin tilted high. They didn't touch the entire night. But something simmered under the surface. Eyes meeting across the ballroom, breaths tightening when their hands brushed accidentally. She was graceful, poised, untouchable. And it was killing him. Back at the mansion, she turned to go to her separate bedroom. Alex stood by the door watching her walk away. Why don't you ever fight back? He asked suddenly. She paused, looked him in the eye. Because I'm not here to prove anything to you, Alex, she said softly. I just want to survive this. The word hit him like a bullet. He'd been so focused on controlling the narrative, controlling her, that he forgot she wasn't playing a game. She was surviving one. And every quiet moment, every still gaze, every word she didn't say, was her armor. That night, for the first time, Alex poured himself a drink and didn't finish it. Because the truth he refused to admit? He didn't want her to just survive. He wanted her to stay. The silence between them wasn't peaceful. It was loaded. It lived in the hallways, curled up in the corners of the room, and lingered in the space between their footsteps. They were married on paper, bound by contract. But their nights told a different story. It started the second week after the wedding. A thunderstorm rattled the estate and Andre, unable to sleep, walked into the kitchen in a silk robe. She didn't expect to find Alex there, shirtless, pouring bourbon by the window. He didn't say a word. She didn't either. But when he looked at her, really looked, something burned behind his eyes. His jaw was tight. His body coiled. He hated that he wanted her. She hated that she didn't. That night they crossed a line they could never uncross. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't romantic. It was raw, intense, full of tension that had been simmering since the day they met. He touched her like he owned her, kissed her like he was trying to erase her defiance, and she met every move with silent resistance that somehow fueled him more. Afterwards he didn't say a word, just left. But it happened again, and again, and again. They barely spoke during the day. He was cold, distant, cruel. But at night they tore into each other like the silence was too heavy to hold. He was always the first to give in. And she never turned him away. It became routine. Dinner. Silence. A glass of wine. Then fire. One night she tried to stop it. She pushed his chest, said no. Not because she didn't want him, but because she wanted more. Wanted softness. Clarity. Something real. But Alex kissed her harder. You're mine tonight. That's all, he muttered. It broke something in her. And yet, she stayed. She told herself it was just physical. That she could separate it. That her body didn't belong to him even if he touched it like it did. But he was slipping under her skin. And worse, she was under his. One night after a party, he threw someone out of the house for simply complimenting her dress. Called it disrespect. She confronted him. You don't get to control who looks at me. You walk around like that and expect me not to notice? He hissed. Maybe if you saw me in the daylight, you'd understand. You think I don't see you? He barked. I see you too much. That's the problem. They didn't speak after that. Not with words. But that night he pulled her into his room instead of hers. It was the first time they didn't pretend it was about convenience. The first time it felt like more, even if they refused to name it. Andre had never planned to fall for him. And if you asked Alex, he'd say he hadn't even come close. But the way he touched her told a different story. Their nights were still wild, possessive, addictive. Alex kissed her like she was air after drowning. Held her like a man afraid to need. And every time she tried to pull away, he'd find her wordless, reckless, dragging her back into the fire. But in the mornings he returned to ice. A cold nod. A turn back. A reminder that this was just a contract. Nothing more. So when the nausea began, Andre didn't think much of it. She chalked it up to stress. To exhaustion. To too many nights pretending she could handle this push and pull without bleeding. Andre never snooped. He never questioned the women who still called his phone even late at night. But something felt off that evening. Alex had left in a rush. No explanation. No security detail. Just a vague, I'll be late. She wasn't sure why she followed. Maybe she wanted to prove her instincts were wrong. Maybe she wanted to stop hurting in silence. Maybe she just wanted to know if what they had meant anything to him. The hotel wasn't far. And the moment the elevator doors opened, her world shattered. There he was. Alex. Pressed against a sweet wall. His hands on Beverly. Their lips locked. Her laugh, familiar and smug, echoed like a scream in Andre's chest. She couldn't breathe. She turned and ran. Down the hallway. Into the street. Past the doorman shouting something. Past the blaring car horns. And then, impact. The world went black. Dr. Adrian Langston had only just returned to the country. His private hospital was days from reopening and his driver was late. So he got behind the wheel himself. He didn't see the girl until it was too late. Her body crumpled to the ground. Blood on her forehead. Breathing shallow. Fragile. He pulled over, heart hammering, and rushed to her side. And when he saw her face, he froze. It wasn't just the resemblance. It was her. Or a version of her. A younger, broken version of the woman he'd loved half his life. The woman his mother forbade him to marry. The woman who vanished without a word after he left for medical school abroad. He carried the girl himself. Didn't wait for an ambulance. Didn't trust anyone else. She was unconscious. Beautiful. And hauntingly familiar. 3 days later, Andre woke in a white room with soft machines humming. Her hand drifted to her stomach. The nurse smiled gently. "You're very lucky," she said. "You and your babies are safe." Babies. Plural. Tears slid down Andre's cheeks. She turned her face to the wall, unable to process the weight of it. Then he walked in, silver streaks in his hair. Eyes full of concern. "You're awake," he said softly. "I'm Dr. Langston." She blinked, confused. His voice felt safe. "Do you know your mother's name?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Amelia." Everything in his face shifted. He didn't tell her what he suspected. Not yet. But when he stepped outside that evening, he ordered the DNA test. The timeline fit. The resemblance was too strong. And his heart already knew what science would only confirm. She was his daughter. Back in the city, Alex was spiraling. The hotel room felt like a coffin. Beverly was gone. She knew she'd won for a moment. But it didn't satisfy her. Not when Alex barely said a word after Andre left. He waited all night. She didn't come back. By afternoon, her number was disconnected. And by nightfall, Alex knew something was very wrong. She wasn't just hurt. She was gone. And this time he might have truly lost her. The days blurred together like soft watercolor, white curtains, warm sunlight, the gentle beeping of monitors. Andre stayed mostly quiet. Her body was healing, but her heart? Still bleeding. She didn't ask about Alex. She didn't cry about Beverly. She just stared out the window, one hand resting on her belly, now rounded with 3 tiny heartbeats she was slowly learning to protect again. Dr. Adrian Langston visited her every morning. He brought books, magazines, warm meals she barely touched. He never pried. Never pressured. Just sat beside her, gently, like a man afraid to scare off something delicate. "You don't talk much," he said one day with a faint smile. Andre didn't look up. "I used to. Then I learned silence hurts less." He didn't press. Just nodded and sat beside her until she fell asleep. It was in those quiet moments, watching her sleep, that Adrian found himself breaking. She looked so much like Amelia. Same nose. Same lashes. Same way of curling her fingers near her mouth when she dreamed. The DNA results arrived 5 days after he sent the samples. He didn't need to open the envelope. But he did. 99.98% probability of paternity. His knees gave out. He sat down, holding the papers with trembling hands, stunned by the weight of what he'd always feared and hoped. "He's mine." The next morning he brought tea and sat across from her. "I want to ask you something," he said quietly. "And I need you to answer honestly." Andre blinked. "Okay. What's your mother's full name?" She hesitated. "Amelia Jacobs. But she used to be Amelia Moore." Adrian's chest constricted. "And your stepfather's name?" "Zenda. He raised me, but he wasn't kind." "I know," Adrian whispered. "Bez, I knew your mother. A long time ago." Andre stilled. He leaned forward, voice shaky. "We were in love. We were going to get married. But I left for school overseas and her family made sure we lost contact." Andre's eyes widened, her hand instinctively covering her stomach. "Andre, I didn't know about you," he said, voice breaking. "I didn't know she was pregnant. But I see you now. And I did a test. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. "You're my daughter." Silence. For a moment she didn't move. Didn't blink. Then without a word she looked at him. Really looked, and the dam finally broke. Tears slid down her cheeks. "You're my father?" she whispered. He nodded, eyes just as wet. "I've missed your whole life. But I'm here now. And if you'll let me, I want to protect what's left of it." That evening she let him hold her hand. That night she told him about the triplets. And for the first time in a long, long while, Andre slept without dreaming of pain. Alex had never felt fear like this. Not when his father died. Not when a rival mafia clan once held a gun to his head. Not when his empire nearly collapsed under a corrupt board. But waking up in a silent house, Andre's room empty, her clothes gone, her phone disconnected, That broke him. He checked the cameras. She'd left with a single suitcase. No driver. No message. Just vanished. He called her phone 10 times. 20. Then 30. Nothing. The next call he made was to Beverly. What did you say to her? He demanded. Beverly scoffed. She caught us kissing, Alex. What did you expect? A honeymoon. I never touched you after that, he snapped. It meant nothing. Well, it meant something to her, Beverly said coldly. You broke her, Alex. And now she's gone. Probably for good. He hung up. His chest caved in. He hadn't even realized she was still watching him that night. That she'd seen that one moment. That stupid, meaningless moment. He had kissed Beverly, yes. But his heart hadn't moved. Not the way it did when Andre whispered his name in the dark. Or the way she looked at him when he was quiet, vulnerable, and unsure of himself. She had seen him. And he had destroyed her. For 2 days he combed through traffic footage. Checked hospitals. Bribed phone companies. Hired a private investigator. Fired them when they didn't move fast enough. He had every airport, every bus terminal, every train station covered. Nothing. No trail. No leads. Andre had disappeared like a ghost. And what haunted him most? She hadn't even left a note. By the 5th day his office was a wreck. Whiskey bottles. Maps. Photos of Andre pulled from surveillance. Her smile, the one she tried to hide. The tiny curve of her lips when she looked at a book. The warmth in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. He was watching. Always had been. No. He'd give anything to just hold her one more time. At night he didn't sleep. He paced the bedroom they once shared. Stared at the empty side of the bed. Remembered the way she used to hum softly before falling asleep. How her body curled toward his even when they fought. He remembered the last time they made love. Just days before she vanished. It hadn't been cold. It had been desperate. Tender. Quiet. And afterward she'd looked at him like she wanted to believe there was more between them. And he'd said nothing. He hadn't said a damn thing. By the end of the week, Alex D'Angelo was no longer a man in control. He was a man unraveling. And somewhere in a hidden wing of a private hospital, the woman he had sworn he wouldn't fall for, was carrying his children and healing in the arms of the father he never knew existed. Andre never thought a hospital could feel like home. But somehow this one did. Maybe it was the soft lighting. Or the constant presence of Dr. Adrian Langston. No longer just her surgeon but now, her father. He was always nearby. Not in an overbearing way. But steady. Watching over her like she was something fragile and precious and long lost. Like a man who was terrified she might disappear again if he blinked too long. At first she didn't know what to say to him. How do you talk to the man who gave you life? But missed it. But Adrian didn't rush her. Instead he brought her things she didn't know she needed. An old photo of her mother in college, stories about how stubborn Amelia used to be, how she once broke his nose during a fencing lesson in school. Andre laughed. Real laugh. The first in weeks. Then one morning he walked into her room with a softer expression. She's here, he said. Andre blinked. Who? Your mother. Amelia stood in the hallway, hands shaking, eyes wide. She hadn't aged much. Still beautiful. Still graceful. But guilt lived in the lines around her mouth. Regret in the tight grip she had on her purse. She walked in slowly like she wasn't sure she was allowed. Andre didn't speak. She couldn't. Her mother dropped to her knees beside the hospital bed. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice cracking. I should have told you about Adrian. I should have fought harder. I should have. Andre pulled her close. I just wanted to know why, she whispered back. Tears flowed freely between them. Adrian stood back, eyes wet, letting them have that moment. Later they all sat together in the hospital's garden. Amelia explained everything. The arranged marriage to Zenda, how her family threatened to cut her off if she didn't obey, how Adrian's letters never reached her, how Zenda burned everything that came with his name. I thought he didn't care, Amelia said, voice thick with grief. And by the time I realized the truth it was too late. You were born and I was trapped. Andre said nothing for a long while. Then she placed a hand on her belly and looked at both of them. I never knew what family felt like, she said. But maybe this is what it's supposed to be. They both nodded. Adrian reached out, placing his hand gently over hers. "You're not alone anymore, Andre. Never again." And for the first time in her life she believed it. That night she slept between two worlds, one of pain and betrayal and one of healing and hope. What she didn't know was that miles away, Alex was staring at the ring he never planned to give her. And the next morning he would wake up with only one mission: bring her home. Alex hadn't slept in days. His hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his eyes, those once sharp, calculating eyes, looked haunted. The ruthless billionaire was unraveling. Then a lead came through. A nurse. A blurry photo. A familiar face in a hospital window. It was Andre. He was alive. He drove himself. No guards. No chauffeur. Just adrenaline and regret. The moment he stepped into the private hospital, everything felt too clean. Too sterile. It didn't match the chaos inside him. He found her room. He froze at the door. She was by the window, sunlight pouring over her, hair pulled into a soft bun. Her hand rested on her belly. Her skin glowed with something ethereal, something maternal. He took one step forward, and Adrian stepped out of the corner like a shadow made of steel. "You have 5 seconds to walk away," the man said coldly. Alex's jaw clenched. "I'm not leaving without her. She's pregnant. With triplets. She doesn't need more chaos." Alex flinched. "She didn't tell you, did she?" Adrian continued, folding his arms. "Because she didn't think you'd care." "I do," Alex said, voice low. "I didn't know. If I had, you kissed another woman," Adrian cut in. "She ran. Nearly died. I picked up the pieces. Where were you?" Alex swallowed. The guilt tasted like blood. "Please," he said. "Just let me see her." Andre's voice answered from behind. "It's okay, Dad." Alex turned. She looked different. Softer. Stronger. Like someone who had walked through hell and was finally learning to breathe again. "Can we talk?" he asked. She nodded once. Alone. They sat across from each other. No hand-holding. No warmth. Just the hum of monitors and everything unsaid between them. "I don't expect forgiveness," Alex started. "I don't even expect you to come back. But I need you to know. I never meant to hurt you." She didn't speak. "I thought pushing you away would protect me. That keeping it cold meant I was in control." He rubbed his hands together. "But I lost control the moment I saw you. And I was too much of a coward to admit it." Andre's eyes shimmered. "I loved you," she said softly. "I didn't even realize when it happened. But I did. And watching you kiss her, I didn't love her," he said immediately. "I never did. It was a mistake, habit, weakness. But it was never you." She looked away, lips trembling. "I didn't just leave because of the kiss," she whispered. "And I didn't want my children to grow up thinking love was pain." Those words gutted him. "I'll spend every day proving I can be better," he said, voice breaking. "Not just for you. For them." She finally met his gaze, but no longer cold. "I don't know if I trust you," she whispered. "Then let me earn it," he replied. Silence. Then she nodded once. And that was enough. Outside the door, Adrian stood still, arms crossed. Watching the man who broke his daughter start to put her heart back together. Piece by fragile piece. He wasn't sold yet. But he saw something new in Alex's eyes. Humility. And maybe, just maybe, love. It started with silence. Not the painful kind they once shared. Heavy, suffocating, laced with resentment. This silence was different. It was gentle. They sat beside each other on the hospital garden bench, her hand resting on her belly, his resting just a few inches away. Close enough to protect her. Far enough not to overwhelm her. Alex didn't rush. He brought her tea instead of wine. Read her chapters from the books she liked. Learned how to time her meals with the morning sickness and kept a spare hairband in his pocket when hers snapped. Andre didn't smile much. But she noticed. She noticed the way he softened when she mentioned the babies. She noticed how he no longer touched her without asking. How he looked at her like she was the only person in the world who could destroy him. And maybe she already had. One afternoon she asked him, "Why are you still here?" He looked at her belly first. Then at her eyes. "Because my heart didn't leave with you. It was you." She didn't reply. But her fingers brushed his for the first time in weeks. That night they shared a room for the first time since the betrayal. Not as lovers. Not as husband and wife. Just two people holding on to the space between them, afraid to let go. Adrian watched from the sidelines. He still wasn't convinced. But he saw change. Real change. He saw the way Alex brought her meals without being asked. How he sat through long OB/GYN appointments asking quiet questions, taking notes, holding her hair when she threw up. The man who once led mafia syndicates without blinking now refused to sleep until she did. At one point, Adrian turned to Amelia with a smirk. "Do you think our daughter broke a billionaire?" Amelia laughed softly. "I think she taught him how to love." By week 30, Andre's belly was full, round, and impossible to ignore. The triplets kicked often, sometimes all at once like a trio of dancers stomping in sync. One night, as Alex knelt beside her, rubbing her swollen feet, she looked down at him and whispered, "I was terrified to tell you." His hands froze. "I thought you'd think I did it on purpose. That I used them to trap you." He looked up, heart in his throat. "You gave me the only three people who'll ever matter more than my pride." Tears filled her eyes. He added, "if you'll let me earn back the fourth." She leaned forward, kissed his forehead. And for the first time since their wedding day, they slept in the same bed, heart to heart, with no secrets between them. The next morning, as light filtered through the curtains, Andre whispered, "I forgive you." Alex didn't respond with words. He just pulled her close. Because this was what he'd almost destroyed. And this was what he would spend a lifetime protecting. Peace, it seemed, never stayed long in their world. The house was quiet that morning. Andre was curled on the couch in one of Alex's oversized hoodies, a soft throw blanket around her, one hand stroking her belly in rhythm with the soft jazz playing in the background. Alex had gone to take a business call. When the doorbell rang, she thought nothing of it, until the maid's voice echoed down the hall. "Mr. D'Angelo, there's a woman here. She says she's an old friend." Andre sat up, instincts prickling. She didn't have to guess. Because a second later, heels clicked across the marble floor, perfume sliced through the air like smoke, and there she was. Beverly. Flawless. Calculated. Dressed like power and poison, wrapped in designer silk. Andre's heart didn't race. It hardened. Well, Beverly smiled, stepping in like she owned the place. "The little runaway has returned." Andre stood slowly. "You're not welcome here." "Oh, I figured that," Beverly said sweetly, circling like a wolf. "But I needed to see for myself. The miracle girl who somehow made the coldest man in New York beg like a lost puppy." Andre didn't flinch. "Jealousy doesn't suit you." Beverly's smile dropped. "You think this is over?" she hissed. "You think a few tears and a baby bump make you safe?" Alex made his choice," Andre cut in. "And it wasn't you." Just then, footsteps thundered down the hall. "Alex." He froze at the sight. Beverly turned, smile snapping back on like a mask. "Alex," she breathed. "You look, God, I missed you." But Alex's eyes were locked on Andre. He walked straight past Beverly, gently touched Andre's back and said, "You okay?" Andre nodded once. He turned then, voice calm, too calm. "Leave." Beverly blinked. "Alex, you shouldn't have come." "You don't mean that," she snapped. "You kissed me." That was a mistake," he said. "You were my past. I see that now. I don't want poison in my life anymore." Her face cracked. "You think she'll last?" she spat. "When the real world hits. When the kids are crying and your empire needs blood." Alex stepped forward. "I'd rather lose the empire than lose her again." Beverly's face twisted with rage. But Andre, calm, quiet Andre, took a slow step forward. "This is the last time you come near me. For my family. If you ever show up again." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Beverly saw it in her eyes. Straight. Unshakable. Earned. Beverly turned on her heel and walked out. But not before muttering, "Let's see how long this fairy tale lasts." The door slammed. Alex exhaled. Andre leaned into him. He held her tightly, lips brushing her temple. "She's gone," he whispered. "No," Andre said softly. "We're here. That's what matters." And in that moment Alex knew. He hadn't just survived Beverly. He had outgrown her. It started with a sharp pain. Andre had been folding tiny onesies in the nursery, blue, yellow, lavender, when the cramp hit her like a punch from the inside out. She gasped, clutching the edge of the crib. Her knees buckled. Alex was in the next room. He was there in seconds. "What is it?" he asked, already dialing the doctor, already gathering the go bag, already calling the car around. She couldn't speak, just gripped his hand. Eyes wide, tears forming. "It's time," she whispered. The hospital was a blur. White lights, rushing nurses, monitors beeping, her name echoing through the hallway like an alarm. Dr. Langston was already waiting, calm, composed, but pale beneath his professional mask. His daughter, his grandchildren, triplets. Andre was wheeled into surgery. Alex tried to follow. "You can't go in," a nurse said, blocking the doors. "She's my wife," he growled. "And she's in good hands," Dr. Langston said gently. "You'll hold them all soon. I promise." The doors closed, and Alex stood frozen in the hallway, heart pounding, hands shaking for the first time in his life. He had faced enemies, survived bullets, broken empires. But this, waiting to find out if she and the babies would be okay? This was the scariest thing he'd ever faced. Inside the OR, Andre drifted in and out of consciousness. She heard voices, machines, her father's calming tone, and somewhere in the middle of it all, 3 tiny cries, then another, then one more. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "They're here," she whispered. "They made it." 2 hours later, Alex walked into her room like a man who'd just found religion. She was awake, pale but glowing. And in her arms, a girl and 2 boys, swaddled, peaceful, soft breaths rising and falling like waves on her chest. Alex froze. He had never seen anything more sacred. Andre looked up and whispered, "Meet your children, Alex." He walked forward like he was approaching a miracle. His hands trembled as he touched their heads, one by one. He bent down, kissed Andre's forehead, then each tiny brow. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. "For what?" she asked. "For staying. For surviving. For giving me them." He sat beside her, arms wrapping around all 4 of them. "I'll never hurt you again," he whispered. "They'll never see me be anything but yours." Andre smiled, exhausted but full. "They already look like you," she teased. He chuckled. "Poor things." She laughed, and in that laugh was everything they had fought through: betrayal, heartbreak, fire, and forgiveness. Because in that room, under the soft hum of new life, a mafia prince became a father. A broken girl became a queen. And love, real, raw, and rebuilt, finally won. 4 years later, the D'Angelo estate was louder now. With 3 toddlers running through marble hallways in matching pajamas, 2 boys with Alex's brooding eyebrows and 1 fierce little girl with Andre's fire, it was never quiet, never calm, and Alex loved it. "Daddy!" cried Leo, the eldest of the triplets, as he launched into Alex's arms. "Papa, she's not sharing." Luca whined, pointing at his sister. "I am sharing," Liana declared from the middle of the toy pile, crown on her curls, arms crossed like a little empress. Andre stood at the edge of the chaos, arms folded, smiling. He was still breathtaking. Curves fuller, laugh deeper, eyes brighter. Motherhood had made her fierce and soft in the same breath. Alex couldn't stop watching her. And he still couldn't believe she was his. That night, after the kids had fallen asleep mid-pillow fight, Andre sank into the velvet couch with a glass of red wine. Alex joined her, pressing a kiss to her bare shoulder. "Remember when it was just us and contracts and cold stares?" she said. He smirked. "I also remember the part where you ruined my cold, quiet life." "You're welcome," she whispered. He watched her sip her wine, then looked away, suspiciously casual. She narrowed her eyes. "Why are you smiling like that?" "No reason," he shrugged. "Alex, I was just thinking," he said slowly, "maybe we should try for another baby." Andre nearly choked. "No," she said flatly. "Come on. Just one more. I want a little one that calls me Papa," in a tiny voice again. "You have 3, who all call you Papa, 100 times a day. I miss the baby stage." "I don't," she said, laughing. "You weren't the one pushing out 3 heads at once." He leaned in, lips brushing her ear. "But I was the one who put them there." "Alex." He kissed her neck. "Just imagine it. One more. A little peace treaty. We are not negotiating children like land deals," she said, rolling her eyes. But her laugh was already betraying her. Later that night, she finished her second glass of wine, a little tipsy. She leaned back in his arms as music played low and slow in the background. Then she blinked, eyes narrowing. Did you put something in my wine? Alex raised his brows innocently. Just love, baby. Alex. He kissed her mid-sentence, lips claiming her, hands sliding over skin he knew like scripture. She tried to stay annoyed, but passion had always been their weakness. And somewhere between the kiss and the tangled sheets, Andre forgot why she'd said no in the first place. 6 weeks later she stared at the test. 2 lines. She stormed into his office, smacked the door open and held it up. Alex looked up from his laptop, completely unbothered. You planned this, she accused. He grinned. Baby number 4. We're on a roll. You are insane. He stood, walked over and pulled her into his arms, careful not to crush the test still trembling in her hand. No, he said softly. I'm just a man who lost you once. I'm never risking it again. He pressed a kiss to her forehead, then to her stomach. I will protect this family with my last breath, everything we built from the ashes. She melted into his chest, sighing. You're still reckless. And you're still mine. Outside, laughter echoed through the gardens. 3 voices calling for their mother, shouting about bugs and birds and made-up kingdoms. Inside, a 4th heartbeat had just begun. And Alex D'Angelo, the ruthless billionaire, the feared kingpin, the man who once believed love was weakness, was now the proudest servant of a queen and her growing empire. Some stories end in fire. Theirs began there, and burned, forever.